PFT OT Tuesday edition. All the things that we didn't get to during the time that we had to talk on radio and TV. Chris Simms still here. And Chris, let's get right to it. The San Francisco 49ers have 4 tailbacks. They're likely to keep all 4 of them on the roster, but somebody's got to be the lead dog. And even though Jerick McKinnon got the big contract last year, he's coming off the torn ACL. Tevin Coleman, the newcomer in 2019, our colleague Matt Mayoko of NBC Sports Bay Area writes that Coleman is likely to be the guy who gets the bulk of the carries and catches in the backfield for the 49ers this year. Really not a surprise, but we're thinking McKinnon is the guy. Until McKinnon's healthy, Coleman, the guy who arrived via free agency, may be the guy for the 49ers.
Yeah, well, and the guy from last year was Matt Breida, right, who took over for the guy in Jerick McKinnon, and he's not available right now, too, because he's dealing with some leg injuries and everything else there. But, I mean, at the very least, they have a lot of depth at the running back position, the San Francisco 49ers. I mean, they got Raheem Mostert, excuse me, that I want to spit that out. So they are about as deep at that position as any team in football when all healthy and everything. But yeah, I mean, hey, I'm interested to see how this plays out, though. At the very least, they gave Jerick McKinnon a lot of money, like you talked about. Tevin Coleman, who was drafted by the Atlanta Falcons when Kyle Shanahan was the offensive coordinator of the Atlanta Falcons. So I think there is, some respect there. And Tevin Coleman's got some big-time talent. We saw last year. I mean, he can fly. You give him a seam, and that outside zone scheme that the Shanahan family's so famous for, he can take it and be a home run hitter and go 70 yards to the house. So I am at the very least just interested to see how they divvy up the carries when all's said and done, and who does become the main guy there in San Francisco.
Mostert is recovering from surgery on a broken arm. Breida has a pectoral injury that for now doesn't require surgery. So it's been Coleman at OTAs, and maybe it's going to be Coleman at training camp. And even though McKinnon was the guy in whom they made the major financial investment last year, and they're keeping him for this year, Coleman, that guy that Kyle Shanahan wanted to bring him over from Atlanta, and there was some talk that if Le'Veon Bell's price had dipped significantly, maybe the 49ers would get into the Le'Veon Bell business. They didn't. They got Tevin Coleman instead, and he could end up being a guy who he was always in the shadow of Devontae Freeman in Atlanta. This could be his chance to kind of take over as the main player. Yeah, no, definitely. And I mean, he has a NFL starting caliber skill set as far as what he can do. I mean, he can do a little bit of everything, certainly, but yeah, the big thing is, and the value he brings to the team is the run game and his ability to be a big play artist that way. I mean, hey, I'm just asking here for conversation. Is Jerick McKinnon in danger if, let's just say, Breida, Mostert, and of course Tevin Coleman just really impressed through training camp? Is Jerick McKinnon a guy that could be a cap casualty at some point during training camp? That's just something I'm throwing out there. I mean, it's kind of iffy when you look at his numbers. Here's the key. The key. They could have gotten out from under this thing after 2018. Right. They kept him around beyond the vesting of his contract, $3.7 million base salary. They'd be looking at $6 million in cap charge if they'd move on, but it's only $3.7 million. They gave him a lot of money last year to get things rolling. And, really, when you look at that deal, it's backloaded, and I think this may be it for him. Affordable $3.7 million this year. Next year it goes to $6.5 million. That's probably when he's going to be in danger of not being on the team. But I think they're going to keep him because the salary is fully guaranteed for 2019. All right, let's move on to the next subject. And this one, look, I'm a big fan of Mike Vrabel. I like what the Titans are capable of doing. I don't necessarily like where the roster currently is, and they may be the team that finishes 4th in the AFC South. I think they're a prime candidate to upset the Browns week 1 because Vrabel knows how to push buttons. And one of the ways he's pushing buttons, Chris, he's trying to eradicate the word good from the team's vocabulary. Anytime someone would be inclined to say good, they're expected to say great. It seems a little hokey. Does this work? Does that kind of sloganeering, does that work with football players? Well, I mean, yes, you can beat things into players' minds and the culture of a football program to where, yeah, you could start to believe in mantras and things like that. To me, it just, so if somebody asks you how you're doing, you don't say good, you say great.
So that's why I just don't understand, I guess, the logistics of it, how it all works out. I mean, you're going to come off the field and the coach is going to go, hey, how'd you play today? And you go, I practiced great. I was great. That's to me where it's funny. To me, it's a little hokey. Yes, it is. I mean, there's other ways, I think, to instill, confidence, work ethic, a championship mentality than trying to, manipulate the English language this way or whatever. But hey, whatever works. And it's all about how he sells it, Mike, too. So I could sit here and have fun with it and laugh and whatever it is, but however he sells it to the team in meeting rooms and how it's being executed on a daily basis is really about how the team will buy into it and if it really has any, if it really matters when all's said and done.
Well, it is a word that has plenty of different purposes too. I mean, if they lose a game and they ask Vrabel how things went, he could say, "Oh, it was just great." I mean, it doesn't have to be used in a positive context.
No, it does not.
Sarcasm. It's an all-purpose word. But the idea is, the idea is to just elevate the discourse, to lift this team out of, and maybe this is the psychology of it, because they're caught in this win one, lose one. Beat a good team, lose to a bad team, right? Build some expectations with a great performance and then trip over your shoelaces the following week. I think they're trying to get the minimum standard higher than it's been. So good isn't good enough. It's now got to be great to be great enough to be associated with the Titans or something.
Yeah.
I don't look. It all depends upon whether it works with the guys in the locker room. That's the only audience that matters, right?
It is. It's how you sell it to the team, how you're executing on a daily basis. It's just funny to me because often with NFL people, great gets thrown around too often. And I have too many head coach friends or coach friends or front office people who are always, we throw around the connotation great with a player way too often this day and age. So that's to me where I first thought it was kind of funny. I got to read more about kind of what he said here. This is a subject that I don't know a lot about, and I want to know how he's actually, selling this and instilling this to the rest of the team. I don't quite get it.
Well, I don't either.
Yeah.
And I've read the story. It's just replace good with great. All right. The Bills have decided to unretire a number that was not actually retired. The O.J. Simpson number unofficially set aside, and it had been set aside for 40 years. This was a story last week because Sonoris Perry wanted to wear number 32. The Bills decided to reissue number 32, and that's fine. O.J. Simpson didn't have a problem with it, but Andre Reed, Hall of Fame receiver, whose number is in that similar limbo where it's not officially retired, but it's unofficially set aside, he's got a problem with the number being issued because of what O.J. Simpson did in his career. It has nothing to do with anything that happened off the field. Some people would say the number shouldn't be worn by anyone with the Bills because of O.J. Simpson's legal issues, and, not the least of which, and the worst of which, the accusations of double murder, and he ultimately was found responsible in civil court for those two deaths. The idea that he did what he did on the field, and that should be respected, and nobody dared to wear that number when I played, Andre Reed said. If there was a 32, they turned it into a 23. There could never be another OJ.
That's an interesting one.
I feel like at some level, Andre Reed is worried he's going to be next. I hate to boil it down to people worrying about their self-interest, but so much of those views are driven ultimately by how it affects me. And if O.J. Simpson's number is no longer in that unofficial category of not being used, the next thing you know, there's going to be another number 83 running around for the Buffalo Bills when Andre Reed's number, not retired, but set into that same status that O.J. Simpson's number had occupied.
Yeah, but I mean, slight little off-field difference in their life. So I don't think Andre Reed has to worry about it. I don't think this is something that, so to me, that's an interesting conversation. It really is. I mean, what do you do in this case? I know O.J. Simpson deserved to have his number retired and 32 not to be used by the things he did on the field. But damn, he kind of wiped that away with what he did off the field after he left that. Do you continue to pay that respect to him and not give the number even though, he allegedly murdered two people, which allegedly in air quotation marks, I don't know. We kind of know he did it, like you said, in the civil case. And it just, I don't know. So what do you do in that case? Do you continue to honor that number even though the guy is seen as a murderer by most people in our country?
Well, I think there's an argument to be made for not using it because of the off-field incidents.
I know you could do both.
You're not setting it aside to honor him. You're setting it aside so there's never another Buffalo Bill running around in number 32 making people think of O.J. Simpson. I'm just not a fan of retiring numbers forever. To me, it's like space for garbage. Eventually, you're going to run out, right? Eventually, there's going to be nowhere. However many years it takes, there will eventually be a time where there's no more room for our garbage. And there's only 100 numbers that you can choose from. Eventually, if teams retire these numbers forever, they're going to run out. So I don't think numbers should be retired. I could see, like, you set it aside for 50 years, but at some point it goes back into circulation. And I think for O.J. Simpson, 40 years is long enough. And for Andre Reed, at some point, 30 years, 40 years is going to be enough. You put the number back in circulation because eventually you're going to run out of numbers.
Yeah, I guess so. I don't know if I totally. I mean, yeah, eventually you are, but I mean that could be 1,000 years from now. I don't know when it is. I mean, yeah, you're right. Eventually, but the New York Yankees haven't run out of any numbers yet, and nobody's retired more damn numbers than they have. So I don't know. That's not my main concern yet. But I do think your point about O.J. Simpson, whether are you honoring him, are you dishonoring him? What are you doing with that jersey? I mean, I don't know what to say here. I have no definitive answer either way. I mean, really, at my heart, I feel like, no, he does not deserve to be honored anymore. And the 32 should be allowed to be worn because of something he did off the field, and he hasn't acted appropriate to have the jersey retired. But then I hear what you're saying, too. It's also like, damn, who would really want to wear it and be associated with that number and that guy to go along with it? So truly an interesting kind of conversation.
And by the way, there's only 25 players on a baseball team, so you can retire 75 and still be good to go.
Right.
For football, you got 53. So you've got a
more
smaller
juggling.
Margin for error.
Yes,
right.
right.
And look, 100 years from now, right?
Yeah.
Are football fans going to be thinking about the guys who played now, and these numbers are going to be retired? Guys who played 50 years ago, 100 years from now, are they like? It's just it's not going to have any relevance.
Some
and
do.
At some point,
Some
I think
do.
It's at some point though, they're going to have to unretire numbers that have been supposedly permanently retired if they continue to retire these numbers. Or at some point, you just have to stop retiring numbers altogether. All right, let's move on. The NFL and the NFL Players Association have been talking about a new labor deal. The New York Times paints a very positive picture of the possibility the deal will be done sooner than later because the NFL wants to get labor peace and then go to the media companies and get extensions for TV deals going beyond 2022 when the bulk of those contracts expire. It makes sense. I understand it. But, Chris, here's the reality. It's one thing to have cordial conversations when you're checking off the issues that there aren't a fight about. But when it's time to get down to the big issues, money and other things the players want, that the union wants, that the league wants, you may hit some roadblocks. And just because it's been a smooth start, it can change at any point. And look at how cantankerous it was back in 2011. It can retreat to that very easily. And I think the players are the ones more likely to go that route this time because the league is very happy with the CBA. They never complain about the current CBA. They say it works for both sides, which is code for it really works for us, and we'd like you to think it's working for you too.
Yeah, I mean, yes. Hey, listen, I'm all for it. I hope everything works out the right way. I want this to move in the right direction and for both sides to see eye to eye. I mean, come on, we got football, NFL. It's going in the right direction. We got the last CBA done. Everything was skyrocketing in the right direction. Then we had the kneeling anthem protest. Football kind of got hurt there for a little bit, rebounded, and everything seems to be on the up and up. So we don't want to lose this momentum as far as people that are associated with the NFL. But I mean, to me, yeah, when I look at things right away, I just go, yeah, this is good, but we haven't talked about franchise tags or fifth-year options yet, or little things like that are truly affecting, sometimes ruining NFL players' lives that way, and those are going to be some of the nitty-gritty details that, yeah, I want to see how friendly this relationship stays when they get into some of those type of discussions.
And the item in the New York Times touches on an important issue that the union leadership would like to get a deal done before March of 2020 when Eric Winston will step aside as the president of the NFL Players Association and a new president will be elected. And the New York Times doesn't venture very far down the rabbit hole, Chris, but there's a real concern both by the union and by the league, that someone could take over as NFLPA president and be far more aggressive, far more confrontational, far more hell-bent on trying to get things that they're just not going to be able to get without a strike. And the reality is a strike isn't going to work. But, it could quickly shift from cordial to some sort of a war footing between the league and the union, depending upon who the next president of the union is. That gives both sides a reason to get this deal done before March. They both have to be on the same page about when the deadline is. Anytime you've got a high-stakes negotiation, if you don't have the two sides in agreement on when you need to get the deal done by, you can't get the deal done because nobody wants to move to their bottom line before they have to. Because if you do, you get squeezed off of your bottom line position. So if they can agree, we want to get this done by March 1 because we want to be able to go get these new TV deals, and we're concerned about who the next president of the NFLPA is. Let's just get it done. Let's have peace, and then let's go make a ton of money. And the challenge is going to be making that all work before, there could be a faction of the players who see what's coming and they say, we want to fight.
Yeah.
We don't want it to be cordial. We don't want it to get wrapped up quickly. It's not going to be an easy thing for the union to pull off.
No, I mean, the union, I think, is more intelligent and ready for business negotiations than ever before. First of all, Eric Winston, I think, has been a phenomenal leader to this point. He's a guy I know who I have a lot of respect for. He's fun. I mean, he's smart. He understands football. He's there to support the football players. But, yeah, it is going to be interesting to see what the players are willing to or not to kind of stand up for in this process. And to me, I mentioned, I think the two things that are going to be, big talking points, that's the franchise tag and the fifth-year option. Those are things that bother me. But players know what's going on.
I guarantee you neither one is going anywhere. But you could have somebody who decides to get involved in union leadership and try to pursue these things that are just essentially a waste of time because we're never going to come up with a compromise. We're never going to give up enough to get rid of the franchise tag. So let's not waste our time arguing about the franchise tag. Let's be very efficient in how we boil this down to the issues where we need to have a meaningful negotiation. And the challenge in any negotiation, you have to have both sides understanding each other and speaking the same language. And if you have one side trying to be cooperative and the other side trying to be combative, and last time around it was the NFL trying to be combative, you could flip it this time and it makes it harder to get a deal done. But as long as the union can't back it up with a strike, and I don't think they can, the current players will not give up their game checks. They will not give up the ability to play football to help somebody who's going to play the sport 5, 10, 15 years from now.
No, I mean, that's exactly it. That's what we talk about it all the time. That's what this is, part of the vehicle that the franchise tag is used on. These players will just play football. They won't really fight us. They're just going to say, yes, they like playing football, and they're the type of guys who, take coaching and want to please the coaches and please their teammates. So, yeah, those are the avenues that, the owners have a definite advantage over the players because, players want to play football. That's what they want to do. And, some of those things are going to be pretty interesting to watch here down the stretch of these negotiations.
And at some level, there's still a simmering lack of trust between the union and the league, and that flashes from time to time. I think for now it has stayed under wraps. But there was a court ruling from Friday that went completely unnoticed until Sunday night into Monday. The Associated Press had a very bare-bones story, 5 paragraphs about the failed effort of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to get payment from the compensation fund set up in the aftermath of the Deepwater Horizon environmental catastrophe in the Gulf of Mexico. And let me give you the quick summary. Here's what happened. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers fell within a geographic boundary where there was a formula where they could try to get compensation. They had to show from 2009 to 2010, 3 months between May and December. They had to find a 3-month window. It's almost like a Price is Right game. Find a 3-month window where your revenues went down by at least 15%. So they found one. May to July of 2009 versus May to July of 2010. The oil spill started in April of 2010. They had a 15% reduction in revenue, minimum. And then what you have to show is at least a 10% rebound the following year. at least 10% in those same 3 months. The idea is, look, we're not going to force someone to prove that their losses were caused by the oil spill. If they can show they had a sufficient downturn and rebound in the year that the Deepwater Horizon happened, we're going to give them compensation. So the Buccaneers tried. The problem is, Chris, the court saw through what they were doing. The court believes they engaged in creative accounting, that they manipulated the books to put in that key 3-month window the massive payment they get from the league of all the money that the teams share. So ordinarily that money shows up on the books in January or August, September, October, November, December. They dropped it into the months in 2011 of May, June, and July to show the increase necessary to try to get the payment. The court saw through it. It's an 8-page ruling that isn't all that hard to understand. I don't know why the Associated Press didn't call this what it was. I mean, the Bucs were trying to put their hand in the cookie jar created by this Deepwater Horizon oil spill, and they got caught by the courts. Now, it's not like they broke the law or they're going to be in any trouble with the league. They tried to get this money. The courts said, we don't like your accounting practices here. You get zero.
Yeah, no, I mean, this is way beyond my pay grade, okay, first of all. Yeah, they obviously got their hand caught in the cookie jar. They're trying to finagle a way to where they get a little bit of money. Now, I'll say this much, okay? I lived in Tampa, as you know, for 6 years, and I have people that I know have wanted to move there, want a vacation there, and to me, that oil spill has hurt that. I will say that, just as far as people wanting to move there, go there. I know I haven't swam in the Gulf of Mexico, I don't believe, since then. That was a gross event, not only the oil spill, but the damn chemicals they put on top of the oil to make it sink to the bottom, the amount of marine life they killed. Yes, there's been a number of issues with the Gulf and the water since that incident. Don't eat Gulf shrimp, I can tell you that much. You still go to certain restaurants that tell you don't do that. So I'm sure they're thinking that hurt their overall, I don't know, people moving there, being fandom, adding extra people to the area, whatever it is, building houses, tourism at the beach, all of that. I get that. But yeah, obviously it doesn't seem like it kind of matches up altogether.
Well, yeah, I mean, just don't play games with the books to try to justify a payment that you ultimately aren't entitled to. And the bottom line is, and look, the lockout was a factor as well, because revenues were down for all NFL teams during the months of March through August when the league was shut down. So how do you show a rebound in 2011 when, for reasons unrelated to the oil spill, your business is down even farther? So I can understand why the Buccaneers were tempted to shift these numbers around, and they claimed that the league told them during the lockout, put those payments in that window. They didn't do a good enough job of proving it in a way that was credible to the court, because the court looks at it and says, we know what you're doing here. You're working backward. You know what the result needs to be to get payment. They wanted $19.5 million.
Right.
You're working backward to try to justify getting that $19.5 million. So it's a bad look. And I think it's better to just say, look, that's the formula that was negotiated. We don't fit within that formula. We're just going to lump it and move forward. But they tried, they failed, and so far they've succeeded, Chris, in not having this become a big PR problem for the Bucs. But when we put the story out there yesterday, I could tell that people were like, what the heck is going on here?
Yeah.
Why would the Buccaneers pull something like this? And I think it's fair to ask tough questions about why they would do this.
No, they better have some reasons, exactly right, to, other reasons to why they went down this, this avenue to, try to get a free $19 or $20 million. You're right. I mean, they better have more reasons here to explain to the public, to people who are going to continue to ask questions, because, at base level, it definitely doesn't look right when you just look at it.
Yeah, and I contacted the Buccaneers because I said, look, I understand what the impression is it's created by the ruling from the court. It's created an impression that you were trying to get something that you don't deserve by using manipulative and creative accounting practices. I'm happy to hear your side of it. I'm happy to hear, and they've opted not to make a statement. And, whether we want to infer that means that they have nothing to say that would make it look any better, so be it. But I gave them a chance. They've chosen not to. We'll see if this thing gathers momentum and makes them look bad and more people are pointing to it, then they may have to do something about it. We'll see how that plays out. All right, that's it for today. You mentioned swimming in a sea of oil. When are you going to be swimming in a sea of egg whites and yolks?
Gosh, I guess sometime here in the next day or two. Thanks. And what do I have to call out 3 people to do it after? Is it 3?
Well, I don't know. Look, I took 10 eggs, so I added a third person. Also, I'm not holding my breath or any other bodily function that Aaron Rodgers is actually going to do it.
Good.
But it was Kirk Cousins took 4 eggs, and he called out 2. So if you take only 2 eggs, I'll leave it to you to decide how many you want to call out.
I'm taking 2 eggs, just so you know. Don't get your hopes up. I'm not going to, try to appease you.
Others took 2 eggs.
Good.
Shefty only took 2 eggs.
Good. That's good. I'm on Team Shefty then. I'm not doing more. I'm definitely not doing what you did because I do think I might throw up on the spot if I had, more than 2 or 3.
But that would be a great video.
Great. Yes. Yes. So great. Sorry, I don't feel like puking with egg yolk on me. Sorry about that.
It really wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. I was so concerned about screwing up the delivery because it's not like you can do a second take.
No, you cannot.
Right? This is it. Anytime you see one, this is way off topic. You ever see one of those movies where somebody's joining the army and they shave their head?
Yeah.
And they're really shaving their head?
Right.
It's like, you only got one take for that, buddy. You can't do that one again. So that's how I kind of felt in that chair. It's like, this is it. I'm getting the egg treatment one time. I better get this right. I didn't even realize my nephew was fashioning the yolks and the egg whites in my hair into a faux hawk.
Nice,
I had no idea it was happening.
That was really good. Yes.
Maybe I should try that. Maybe I should try that look with a toupee one of these days.
No, please don't. But if you do want to come in with those purple teeth that I saw in that video, I would love to see that on TV.
Purple.
They
weren't
a little
purple.
purplish. Looked like you had opened a bottle of wine at some point that afternoon.
We were drinking Camus.
Okay.
I tried to find the right level of because I couldn't just go sit and I had to have it. I had to get and I knew when I got to the point where I was like, all right, screw it, let's go do it, because I really didn't want to do it. I mean, Kirk Cousins thinks in some way this is going to ingratiate himself to me. I'm even more upset with him. I did not want to do this, and I delayed it 3 days, and it's like I have to do it, and there's no way I could do it unless I was just in the mood.
Yeah.
So I knew when it was time. Let's go. Let's get this thing done. And it was disgusting. But I don't want to make it sound more disgusting than it was because I want you to go through with it. And I want your experience to be properly recorded so we can play it on the show. And we'll see if Aaron Rodgers does it. We'll see if Rex Chapman does it, if his account gets unsuspended by Twitter. And we'll see you on Wednesday for another edition of both PFT Live and PFT OT. And a new Chris Simms on Button coming later today. Also likely a new PFT PM. Great job as always, Chris. See you tomorrow.
You the man. Be good.